5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a bit of an ideological journey when we talk about oil and gas and mineral extraction here in this committee. So let me just offer you, Mr. Nett, do you need any more time to clarify anything in response to the pretty aggressive questioning you were just subjected to?
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, as an official of the Bureau of Land Management, my job is to ensure that we follow the rules, to follow the law, to be safe, to be legal, to be ethical. And I am in no way, the Bureau of Land Management has policies about buying material from anyone that violates child labor law.
Thank you. I want to ask you about the Arctic Refuge. And of course, to me, it was very good news last week when the Biden administration announced it would cancel the 7 remaining leases in the Refuge's coastal plain. I want to commend you for that. The Trump administration was trying to jam that through on a deeply flawed environmental review process. And now we have a chance to be more thoughtful and to comply with the law as we move forward. This prospect of drilling in the coastal plain of the Arctic Refuge is not very attractive to most folks in the oil and gas industry. Wouldn't you agree?
It's complex. It is complex and it's harder than the lower 48.
I'm referring to the fact that Chevron and Hilcorp paid millions of dollars to get out of leases on the corporation lands within the coastal plain. 2 lessees voluntarily relinquished their leases. Shows that even big oil knows that it's not very profitable to drill there. Wouldn't you agree?
I said they realize it's very complex and it's challenging.
Okay. We can certainly agree it's complex and challenging, but it's also not very profitable for big oil. Can you speak to some of the complications, barriers, and risks to drilling in the refuge?
Well, again, the Arctic Refuge, given the sensitivity of the land, it's really building roads when the ice, in the period where you can travel over there, it's moving massive equipment in that cannot be lower in the 48. And then it's an area that is used for subsistence support for the communities. And so again, protecting those areas, protecting and ensuring that resources are not damaged in a way that is non-recoverable.
And when the Trump administration did have a lease sale, there wasn't much interest in this. Would you agree? I mean, there were just a few bidders. Most of the leases went to a state of Alaska-owned corporation that I would say has questionable capacity to even move forward on developing those leases.
Yeah, I cannot speak to the questionable capacity, but I can speak to, yes, it was 3, and the state, an entity on behalf of in Alaska acquired 7 of the leases.
We've got a lot of deadbeat leases out there on BLM lands, right?
We do.
So is it normal to grant a lease to a bidder that would seem to lack capacity to even develop that lease? It would seem to be a speculative venture, maybe to just tie up land to benefit some future developer. Is it normal for BLM to just rubber stamp leases under those circumstances?
We work to issue lease to people who are financially and technically capable of developing it, so both financially and technically.
That should be a factor in determining whether someone gets the lease, is what I'm hearing you say, correct?
That is the standards we use.
Can you tell me a little more about the NPRA announcement last week and some of the specifics about how the proposed rule in the NPRA will better protect these important special areas that are uniquely vulnerable to climate change and uniquely important for biodiversity and other values?
Yes, when Congress enacted the Petroleum Reserve, they defined, I think it was 4 or 5 areas that were special areas, areas that are used for subsistence primarily or to protect waters or other resources. This rule will help put a framework in place to make certain that as we look at those areas, we can take the necessary step to protect it. Currently, without those rules, it is vulnerable, and so the intent is to put some rules in place to make certain we follow not only the intent of Congress, but to manage those special area in a way that benefits the generations.
I thank you, Mr. Ned, and yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Huffman. I do want to clarify something. Mr. Ned, my good friend, Mr. Huffman, asked or mentioned rubber stamping. In your 18 years at the BLM, have you, quote, ever rubber stamped, end quote, any leases?
We have not in my knowledge,
Thank
I
you
have
very
no
much.
direct knowledge of
Mr.
rubber stamping.
Thank you very much. Mr.